The first encounter, the alien empath Zara, had never failed a mission before. Her powers were unmatched, her touch a deadly weapon that destroyed everything in its path. For years, she had carried out her orders without question, using her ability to weaken her enemies to end their lives with a single touch. But today, she was facing something different. Standing before the human, Zara felt something shift in the air. She had studied him from afar, learned his habits, observed his movements. Everything had been calculated, planned. Yet, as her fingers grazed the skin of his arm, something unexpected happened. Instead of the usual rush of power, the wave of destruction that she had come to rely on, there was nothing, absolutely nothing. Zara froze, her eyes widening in confusion. This had never happened before. Her touch should have caused pain, suffering, maybe even death. But this human, this strange, resilient human, seemed to be immune to her power. He merely stared at her, his expression calm, unshaken. Was he afraid? No. His eyes betrayed no fear, only curiosity. "Why doesn't my touch kill you?" Zara whispered, more to herself than to him. It wasn't a question she expected an answer to, but the human seemed to sense her uncertainty. He gave a small, almost amused smile. "You're not the first to try," he replied, his voice steady and confident. "But maybe you should stop thinking of yourself as invincible." Zara's mind raced. The human wasn't just unafraid. He was aware of her abilities even more so than anyone she had encountered. His calmness, his defiance, made her question everything she thought she knew about herself. Her touch, her gift, was supposed to be a guarantee, a promise that no one, no creature could resist her power. And yet this man stood before her unaffected. The seconds stretched into what felt like hours, and Zara could feel her heart rate picking up. She reached for him again, her fingers hovering above his chest, but something stopped her. This time she wasn't sure if she was hesitant because she was unsure of her power, or because she was unsure of what would happen next. "You really are different," Zara muttered, the weight of her own thoughts pressing on her chest. Could it be possible that this human was immune to her abilities? If so, why? What made him special? The human shifted his stance, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that she couldn't ignore. "Maybe it's not about your power," he said. "Maybe it's about me." Zara blinked, a strange feeling stirring inside her. What did he mean? How could someone so ordinary be the key to breaking her? "You can try again," he added, almost as if daring her. "But you won't find what you're looking for. Your power, it's not something that works on me." Zara stepped back, her mind still reeling. She had been sent to complete a mission, to end this human's life. But now, standing in front of him, with his unyielding calmness and his piercing gaze, she wasn't so sure. Why wasn't her touch killing him? What was different about him? For the first time, Zara felt a sense of unease creeping in. Her powers, her gift, had always defined her. She had never questioned them. But now, as she stood face to face with this human, she couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed. The rules had shifted and she was no longer certain of who held the power. "This isn't over," Zara said, her voice low and determined. She stepped back further, her eyes never leaving his. "I will find out why your resistance is so strong. You'll regret underestimating me." The human didn't flinch. Instead, he simply watched her with quiet amusement. "Maybe," he replied softly. "But I'm not the one who's worried here." Zara turned and walked away, her thoughts swirling. Her mission, the one she had never failed before, now felt uncertain. She had expected an easy victory, but this human had shaken her in ways she couldn't explain. What was his secret? What made him immune to her touch? As she disappeared into the shadows, one thought lingered in her mind. This wasn't just about power anymore. Something much more dangerous was unfolding, and Zara had no idea where it would lead. The test Zara couldn't stop thinking about. The human. The encounter haunted her. His calm, his resistance, the way his eyes had locked with hers without flinching. Something about him had unsettled her in a way she hadn't experienced in centuries. She had no time to dwell on this, though. Her mission was still active, and she had failed once. Failure wasn't an option. Not for her. The next day, Zara returned, determined to finish what she had started. She had to prove to herself that she was still the most powerful being in the galaxy. No human could defy her, especially not this one. The human whose name she had yet to learn was waiting for her. He stood there as though he had been expecting her. His stance was relaxed, but there was a sharpness in his eyes that didn't escape her notice. It was as if he knew exactly what was coming, and it bothered her. "You came back," he said, his voice low and steady with no trace of fear. "You didn't have to. I told you your power doesn't work on me." Zara didn't answer him. She didn't need to. Her hand was already outstretched, her fingers brushing his chest once again. This time, she was ready. This time, her powers would surge through him. She was certain of it. She had no other choice but to believe it. As her hand made contact, the familiar rush of energy surged in her veins. But something was different. Again, there was nothing. No pain. No destruction. Just emptiness. It was as if her power had hit a brick wall, her strength dissipating into thin air. She pulled her hand back, her heart pounding. She couldn't understand. It was impossible. "I told you," the human said, his voice a bit softer now, almost pitying. "Your power can't touch me. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of anything you can do." Zara stepped back, her mind racing. She had been tested by the strongest, the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. None of them had ever survived her touch, let alone withstood it. Yet here she was, facing a human who refused to break. "Why?" she whispered, barely able to keep the disbelief from her voice. "Why can't you be affected by my power? No one has ever been immune to me before." The human remained, silent for a moment, his gaze never leaving hers. His eyes held something, a knowing look, as if he were seeing right through her. It made her feel exposed. "You're not the first to ask that," he finally replied. "But you're the first to keep trying after failing. Most people give up after the first failure." Zara's frustration flared. She had never been made to feel so helpless, so small. And yet, here she was, trapped by the very thing she had once controlled. She couldn't allow this. Not after everything she had sacrificed, the countless lives she had taken with ease. "Why are you so sure?" Zara demanded. "What makes you think I'll stop? I'll never stop until I break you. I'll find a way." The human gave a small, almost sad smile. "You'll keep trying, but you won't win. Not against me. Not against what I am." Zara clenched her fists at her sides. She hated the way he spoke, like he knew something she didn't. Like he had some secret, something she was missing. She had to know. She needed to know how this human could stand against her powers. She couldn't let him go on thinking he had bested her. "Then what are you?" she spat, her voice barely controlled. "What makes you so different?" The human tilted his head slightly as if considering her question. "I'm not different. I'm just prepared. I've learned to protect myself, to block things out. Things like your power." "Block it out?" Zara repeated, her confusion growing. "How? How could you block my touch?" He shrugged, not showing any signs of fear or hesitation. "It's all about control. Most people don't know how to shield themselves from others, especially from someone like you. But I do. And it's why you can't touch me. Your powers are based on your connection to others' emotions, right? Well, I've learned how to sever that connection. It's not so hard, once you know how." Zara stood there, stunned. She had never considered this. To her, emotions were like a weapon, something that couldn't be easily escaped. Yet here was this human, claiming to have found a way to block it all out. "You're telling me you can block me?" Zara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You can stop my power from reaching you?" "Yes," he said, his gaze softening. "I can. But it's not about blocking you, not really. It's about controlling what I let in, your power, It works on the weak, the scared. But I'm not weak, and I'm not scared. Not of you. There was something in his words that struck her deeply, something she couldn't ignore. Zara had always prided herself on her strength, on her control. But what the human said, it made her question her own understanding of power. Was her power really as unstoppable as she had believed? Or was there something else, something deeper, that she had overlooked? You're wrong, Zara muttered, her voice colder now. I'll make you break, I will. No one can resist me forever. The human simply smiled, his confidence unwavering. We'll see about that. As Zara turned to leave, her mind was a whirlwind of confusion and doubt. This human, this one seemingly insignificant human, had turned everything she thought she knew about herself upside down. Her mission wasn't just about defeating him anymore. It had become about something much more dangerous, understanding her own limits. And Zara wasn't sure if she was ready for that. The unseen strength Zara couldn't escape him. No matter how many times she tried, the human lingered in her mind. Every failed attempt to overpower him, every time her touch slipped away harmlessly, made her more determined to understand. She had faced countless enemies in her life, aliens, monsters, and even gods. But nothing had prepared her for this, for him. And it was beginning to gnaw at her, pulling at the seams of her perfect control. She stood in the quiet of her quarters, looking out at the stars. The space station, a cold mechanical structure, felt more like a prison than a place of power now. Her mind wandered back to the human. His calm demeanor, his ability to shrug off her power. It all pointed to something she couldn't understand, something she hadn't prepared for. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. It was the human again. She didn't have to ask who it was. She could sense him even through the thick metal walls. He was always there now, waiting for her to confront him. "Come in," she said, her voice flat, betraying nothing. The door slid open and he walked in without hesitation, his expression the same. Confident, unfazed. His presence in the room was unsettling, like a stone that refused to sink in water. He stood in front of her as if daring her to try again. "You're back," Zara said, trying to sound unaffected, but there was an edge to her words now. "You never give up, do you?" He gave her a small, almost mocking smile. "Same could be said for you." The words stung more than she expected. She hated how easily he got under her skin, how his calm, collected attitude chipped away at her resolve. She had always been in control, always the one who made others feel small, insignificant. But this human, he wasn't afraid. He wasn't even impressed by her power. It angered her more than she could admit. "Why do you keep testing me?" Zara asked, her voice thick with frustration. "You know what I am. You know what I can do. Why don't you just submit?" He took a step closer, his gaze unflinching. "Because you're not what you think you are." Her heart skipped a beat at his words. There was something in his tone, something deeper that she couldn't quite place. He wasn't just talking about her power, he was talking about her, about who she was. "I am everything I need to be," Zara said, her tone cold, but her chest felt tight. "I'm the weapon you should fear." "Maybe you are," the human said quietly, his eyes never leaving hers. "But I don't fear you." She couldn't stand it anymore. She reached for him, her fingers brushing his arm with deadly intent, expecting the familiar rush of power, expecting the destruction that followed. But once again there was nothing, just the feeling of his warm skin under her fingertips, and the faintest flicker of something inside her that she couldn't understand. It was as if her power was being absorbed by something that kept her from reaching him. And in that moment she realized the truth. It wasn't just that he was immune to her touch. It was that he was actively blocking her. Somehow, he had learned to stop her power from affecting him. "How are you doing this?" Zara demanded, stepping back, her voice tense with disbelief. The human didn't respond right away. Instead, he tilted his head, studying her. It was almost as if he was waiting for her to figure it out. "It's not about power, Zara. he said, his voice calm but steady. It's about control. Your power comes from connection, emotion, fear, but I've learned how to block it, how to shield myself from you, from everything you are. You think this is control? She sneered, anger flaring in her chest. This is nothing. You can't stop me forever. I'll find a way to break through. He shook his head. You're missing the point. You think strength is in the power to destroy, but true strength is in knowing what to let in, what to block, out. Those words hit Zara like a physical blow. She had never seen it like this before. All her life, she had believed that power was simply about dominance, about imposing one's will on others. She had never understood the kind of strength that came from control over oneself, the kind that the human seemed to possess. His words echoed in her mind, causing a ripple of doubt in her usually unshakable confidence. Was he right? Was she truly strong, or had she been relying on the wrong kind of strength all along? You can't keep me out forever, she said, though the words felt hollow as they left her lips. She didn't know if she was trying to convince him or herself. The human stepped closer, his gaze steady, unwavering. Maybe, but you'll never know if you don't stop trying to break me. Zara's mind raced. This wasn't just about a human who defied her powers anymore. This was about something much deeper. The human's resilience, his control, was teaching her something she had never been taught. She had always been the one who controlled others, who shaped them to her will. But now she was the one learning how to bend, how to adapt. For the first time in her life, Zara wondered if her power was truly the source of her strength, or if it was merely a crutch she had relied on for far too long. You think you've won, she said, forcing herself to sound certain. But I'll find a way to make you break. I don't need to break, Zara, the human replied quietly. I'm not the one who's lost. The words stung, but Zara refused to show it. She turned away, her heart pounding in her chest. This battle was far from over, and as much as it frustrated her, she couldn't help but wonder if the human was right. Could she truly break him? Or was it possible that she was the one on the edge of losing control? The doubt was terrifying. The secrets within Zara's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. The human had done more than just survive her attempts to destroy him. He had made her question everything. Her power, her purpose, and the way she had seen the universe for as long as she could remember. It was all starting to unravel. For years, she had been a weapon. Nothing more, nothing less. Her power was her identity, the thing that made her feared and revered across the galaxy. Yet after each failed attempt to break the human, she had begun to see cracks in her own facade. What if her power wasn't everything? What if there was something more to strength than what she had been taught to believe? The human's words echoed in her mind. True strength is in knowing what to let in, what to block out. She couldn't stop thinking about them, couldn't stop wondering if she had been wrong all along. Her ability to control others, to impose her will, was that really strength? Or was it just a tool, one that could easily be turned against her? It was this uncertainty that brought her to the one place she had avoided for years. Her own memories, her upbringing, her training, her entire existence as an empath, everything she had been taught to believe about power, was now under scrutiny. And in the darkest corners of her mind, she began to realize something she hadn't before. She had never learned to control herself. Zara paced the cold metallic floor of her quarters, trying to clear her head, but the thoughts kept coming, faster than she could process. The human was right. She had always been focused on controlling others, on using her power to manipulate, to break. But she had never once stopped to consider the possibility that true strength came from within, not from what she could do to others. There was no answer to that question, at least not yet. But as much as it terrified her, Zara knew that the only way forward was to face the truth, to face the possibility that her powers were not the ultimate source of strength, and that she had much to learn. Suddenly, the door slid open, and the human stepped inside. His eyes locked with hers immediately. He didn't need to say anything. He knew she had been wrestling with herself, and he was here to push her further. You look like you're lost in thought, he said, his voice smooth, almost too calm. Still trying to figure me out? Zara didn't answer him right away. She was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of pretending she had all the answers. But the stubbornness in her didn't allow her to show weakness. Not yet. Not in front of him. "Why do you keep pushing me?" She finally asked, her voice hoarse, though she tried to mask the vulnerability she felt. "Why won't you just let me do what I was sent here to do?" He took a step forward, his expression unreadable. "Because you're more than just a weapon, Zara. You know it even if you won't admit it." Zara felt a jolt in her chest. More than just a weapon? That idea was foreign to her, almost too much to process. For so long she had been nothing but the extension of her power, a tool for destruction. The thought that she might be something else, something more. It was almost too painful to accept. "You don't understand," Zara said, her voice cracking despite her efforts to stay composed. "Everything I am, everything I've done, it's all been for a reason. I'm not like you. I'm not some ordinary person. I'm an empath. I was born to control, to destroy, to dominate. I can't be anything else." "That's what they want you to believe," he replied quietly. "But you're not just a weapon. You've got a heart, Zara. That's what's different about you." Her breath hitched. For a moment she wanted to dismiss him, to push him away, to tell him that he didn't know anything about her. But there was something in his eyes, something that made her stop. He wasn't just speaking to her from a place of arrogance. He spoke from a place of understanding, of experience. "My heart," she repeated as if testing the word. "What do you know about my heart?" The human's gaze softened, and for the first time, Zara saw something in his eyes that she hadn't before. Empathy. True empathy. The kind that wasn't based on power or manipulation, but on understanding. He wasn't looking at her as an enemy. He wasn't seeing her as a weapon. He was seeing her as a person. "I know that you're not the monster you think you are," he said. "I know that inside you there's more than just the desire to destroy. I've seen it in you, even if you haven't." Zara felt something shift in her chest. His words pierced through her defenses like nothing had before. For a fleeting moment she felt seen, like someone had peeled back the layers she had so carefully constructed around herself. And she hated it, because it made her feel exposed, vulnerable, and unsure. "You don't get it," Zara snapped, trying to regain control. "I have no choice. I was made to be this way. I was born to be the one who breaks things, to bend them to my will. If I can't do that, then what am I?" The human shook his head, his voice unwavering. "You're not just a weapon, Zara. You're a person with choices, and you can choose to be more than just the thing they made you. You can choose to be something different." Those words landed on her like a ton of bricks. For the first time in her life, Zara was faced with a choice that didn't come with orders, directives, or expectations. It was a choice to define herself, to decide what kind of person she would be, outside of the power that had defined her existence for so long, and it terrified her. "I don't know how to be anything else," she admitted, the words slipping out before she could stop them. "I don't know how to live without this power. It's all I've ever had." The human stepped closer, his voice gentle but firm. "You can learn. You've got more strength in you than you realize." Zara stood there, her heart pounding in her chest. His words lingered, heavy in the air. She wanted to push him away, to reject everything he was offering, but she couldn't. For the first time in her life, she felt the weight of a truth she couldn't ignore. She wasn't just a weapon. She was more than that. But what did that mean? For her now, the future, once so clear and certain, was now shrouded in uncertainty. Zara had always believed that power was everything, that control was the only thing that mattered. But now, she wasn't so sure. What would she do with this new understanding of herself? And more importantly, would she have the courage to choose a different path? The tension in the room was palpable, thick with the weight of the question that hung between them. Zara knew that her life was about to change, but whether that change would be for better or worse, she had no idea. The bond Zara couldn't ignore it anymore. The quiet but persistent pull the human had on her thoughts was growing stronger by the day. His presence, his words, his challenge. They lingered in her mind long after he had left her quarters. She had always prided herself on her strength, her ability to stay focused, to block out distractions. But the human, this strange, resilient man, had shattered that focus. It was more than just his resistance to her power that unsettled her. It was his belief in something greater than destruction. He had talked about control, about choices, about being more than what others made her. It wasn't just his words that affected her, but the way he lived them. Every action, every moment, in his presence, showed that he truly believed in his own strength, not the kind that came from overpowering others, but the kind that came from within. Zara couldn't help but wonder if he was right. Could she have been wrong all this time? Could there be more to strength than what she had been taught? The thought gnawed at her, eating away at the certainty she had once held in her power. It wasn't just about the human anymore. It was about her, about who she had become, about the choices she had made, and the ones that still lay before her. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sharp knock at the door. Without waiting for a response, the human walked in, his expression unreadable. Zara didn't bother to mask her frustration, though she did try to rein in the flicker of vulnerability that had been surfacing more and more these days. "You keep coming back," Zara said, the words heavy with something between annoyance and curiosity. "Why?" "I've told you I'm not going to break, not the way you want." He stepped closer, his gaze steady. "It's not about breaking you, Zara. It never was. It's about showing you that you don't have to break at all." The words hit her like a wave, and for a moment, Zara felt dizzy. Her hand instinctively reached for the edge of the table beside her, steadying herself as if the world around her had shifted. She didn't want to feel this. She didn't want to admit that his words were sinking into her, planting seeds of doubt and curiosity that she wasn't prepared for. "You're not like them," the human continued, his voice softer now, more personal. "You've been taught to control others, to use fear as a weapon, but that's not the only way to be strong." Zara's chest tightened. She hated how right he sounded. Was that the truth? Had she been so consumed by her power, by her mission, that she had failed to see the deeper truth of what it meant to be strong? "You don't know me," Zara snapped, her voice sharp. "You don't understand what I've been through, what they've done to me." He didn't flinch. His eyes remained calm, piercing. "I don't have to know everything about you to see that there's more to you than just your powers, Zara. I know there's a part of you that wants to let go of, the anger, the need to control. I've seen it in you." Zara's breath caught in her throat. The human had been watching her, really watching her, in ways she had never allowed anyone else to. It felt both unsettling and strangely comforting. But that comfort came with its own set of fears. If she let him in, if she allowed herself to believe that she was more than just the weapon she had been created to be, what would that mean for her? She couldn't afford weakness. She couldn't afford to lose control. Not now. Not when she was so close to achieving everything she had been taught to seek. But the human, standing before her now, was forcing her to question that very belief. "I can't keep doing this," Zara whispered more to herself than to him. "I don't know how to stop being what I am." "You don't have to stop," the human said gently, his voice barely above a whisper. "You just have to let yourself be something else, something more." There was a silence between them, thick with unspoken truths. Zara stood frozen, her heart racing. She wanted to lash out, to push him away, but she couldn't. Not anymore. The walls she had spent so long building around herself were beginning to crumble piece by piece, and the human's quiet words were the ones that had cracked the first stone. "You think you can change me?" Zara asked, her voice tinged with bitterness. "That's impossible. I am who I am. I can't be anything else." He took another step forward, and this time, Zara didn't back away. She didn't know why, but she didn't. You don't have to change everything all at once, he said. Change doesn't happen in one moment, Zara. It happens in 1,000 tiny decisions. It's about choosing to act differently, to see yourself differently. Her mind raced. His words were so simple, yet they seemed to open a door she hadn't even realized was there. The thought of change, of truly letting go of everything she had been, everything she had ever known, terrified her. But at the same time, there was something oddly freeing about it. Something that made her feel like there was a way out, a way forward. I don't know how to trust this, Zara admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. You don't have to trust it right away, he said softly. Just take it one step at a time. You don't have to carry all of this alone anymore, Zara. You don't have to be the weapon they made you. You can choose to be more. Zara looked into his eyes, her own heart pounding. There was no turning back now. The human wasn't just offering her his resistance. He was offering her something much more dangerous, something she had never allowed herself to want. A choice, a chance to redefine herself. As the silence stretched between them, Zara felt the weight of his words settle deep in her chest. She had spent so long being what others wanted her to be, so long hiding behind the mask of power and control. But for the first time, she felt the urge to break free, to be something different. But could she really do it? Why are you doing this? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Why are you helping me? Because you're worth it, he said simply, his gaze unwavering. Because I believe in you. I believe in what you can be. Zara felt a lump form in her throat. She didn't know how to respond. She had never been shown kindness like this. Never been told that she was worth anything beyond her power. But here was this human, this stranger, telling her that she was worth more, that she could be more. The world around her seemed to blur as the weight of his words settled in. For the first time, she allowed herself to hope, to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could choose a different path. I don't know if I'm ready for this, Zara whispered, her voice barely audible. You don't have to be ready yet, the human replied. You just have to try. In that moment, something inside Zara shifted. The walls she had built for so long, the walls of anger, control, and fear began to crack. And for the first time in her life, she felt the pull of something different, a bond, something stronger than power, something that might just save her. She wasn't alone anymore. The final betrayal, the silence of the station was shattered by a deep rhythmic pulse, an alarm that hadn't sounded in years. Zara's eyes snapped open. She was alone in her quarters, but the air felt different, colder, heavier. She stood, every nerve in her body alert. This wasn't a test. This wasn't another experiment. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. Outside her door, shadows moved quickly. Metallic boots clicked on steel floors, voices whispered in clipped coded speech. It was the elite, empaths like her, but bound to the Dominion. And they weren't here for training. They were here for her. She reached for the wall panel and accessed the internal scans. Red signatures flooded the hallway, armed operatives, all of them heading toward one room. Hers. Zara cursed under her breath. She knew what this meant. Her hesitation, her delay in eliminating the human, had been noticed. The Dominion didn't tolerate uncertainty, and they certainly didn't tolerate empathy for humans. She had broken the first law of her kind, never bond with a target, but it was already too late for regret. The bond had formed, slowly, painfully, inevitably. The human hadn't just resisted her touch. He had changed her, not through power, but through patience, through truth. And now the Dominion wanted her erased for it. Zara's mind raced. They wouldn't just execute her. They'd take him too. They'd see him as a threat, someone who knew too much, someone who could resist the Dominion's deadliest weapon. She moved quickly, grabbing her cloak and sliding her communicator into her wristband. She had one chance to warn him. He was already waiting when she reached him. The human stood near. The docking bay, calm as always, as if he had sensed this moment coming. Behind him, the emergency lights blinked like dying stars. His eyes met hers, and there was no surprise in them, only a quiet sadness. "They're coming for you, aren't they?" he asked. Zara nodded. "Not just me. You too." He didn't flinch. "I figured." Zara didn't have time for speeches. She grabbed his wrist. "We have to leave. Now." But just as they turned toward the escape route, the air thickened. A sharp hum pulsed through the walls, a signal. The kill order had been activated, and standing at the other end of the corridor was someone Zara had once called her mentor. Lyra. Tall, graceful, wrapped in the dark blue armor of high command, Lyra stepped forward, like death itself. Her eyes were hard and unforgiving. "You betrayed everything," Lyra said coldly. "You were our finest, Zara, our most controlled, and now you've become this?" Zara stepped in front of the human instinctively. "I didn't betray the Dominion. They betrayed me. They made me believe that feeling was weakness." Lyra tilted her head. "Because it is." "No," Zara said, her voice low but fierce. "It's the only thing that's kept me alive." Without a word, Lyra raised her hand, and the corridor lit up with searing blue light. It was an empathic blast, designed to shred through emotion, to collapse the will of any creature it touched. Zara raised her own hand, pushing against it with all her strength. The energy between them crackled like a storm, ripping through walls and warping the air. The human stood behind her, shielded by her body, but still, Zara could feel him. Not as a weakness, but as an anchor. Her power surged, not from rage, but from resolve. The blast twisted, turned, and then collapsed. Lyra staggered. Zara didn't hesitate. She rushed forward, tackling her former mentor to the ground. The clash of their abilities was explosive. Hands locked, minds clashed. Memory against memory. Ideology against ideology. And in the chaos, something snapped inside Zara. She stopped trying to win. Instead, she released the very thing the Dominion had always forced her to suppress: her full emotion, her grief, her regret, her longing for something more. A flood of feeling burst from her like a tidal wave, raw and unfiltered. It struck Lyra not with violence, but with unbearable truth. It shattered the woman's mental walls, showing her every moment Zara had doubted, every night she'd questioned what she had become. Lyra screamed, not from pain but from exposure. And then she collapsed, unconscious. The hallway went silent. Zara fell to her knees, breathless. The human caught her, steadying her. What did you do?" he asked. Zara looked at her hands, still glowing faintly. "I didn't fight back," she whispered. "I let her see me." He was quiet for a long moment. "Then you're not the same person you were before." Zara stood slowly. "No, I'm not." But there was no time to celebrate. More operatives were coming. The fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. They moved together, ducking into service tunnels, racing against the ticking clock. Zara led them toward the outer decks, where an abandoned scout vessel remained hidden in the old salvage bay. It was their only chance. As they ran, the human spoke again. "They'll keep coming. Even if we escape, they'll never stop hunting you." "Then let them come," Zara replied, her voice steady. "Because for the first time, I'm not afraid." Hours later, stars streaked past the ship's windows. The Dominion fleet was far behind for now. The human sat quietly at the console while Zara stared out at the void, her mind full of thoughts. She had survived. She had broken free. But the cost was only beginning. "What now?" he asked gently. She turned to him. "Now we fight. Not with power, not with fear, but with truth. I'm going to show the galaxy what strength really looks like." He smiled, tired but proud. "And what's that?" Zara looked down at her hands, remembering everything. The pain, the transformation, the fire of her power, and the way he had held her through all of it. "It's the strength to feel," she said, "and the courage to change." But deep in the shadows of space, the Dominion prepared for war, and Zara knew. The final reckoning was near. The new dawn, the stars were quiet that night. Too quiet. The hum of the ship's engines had become a dull, comforting pulse in the background, but even the rhythmic vibration couldn't ease the tension growing between Zara and the human. They had escaped, but there was no peace in escape. The chase had only just begun. As the ship cut through the deep emptiness of space, Zara sat in the dimly lit control room, her fingers hovering above the ship's navigational console. She could sense the faint traces of the Dominion fleet in the distance, their massive warships cutting through the void, searching, hunting for them. They wouldn't stop until she was back under their control, or worse. But this time it was different. Zara's eyes drifted to the human, who was pacing the small cockpit. He looked tired, exhausted even, but there was a quiet determination in the way he moved. She had come to rely on him more than she ever imagined. His calm, his resilience, his unwavering belief that there was more to her than just the weapon she had been created to be. He had become her anchor, the one thing she knew she couldn't let go. "We need to figure out where to go next," he said. Stopping in front of her, Zara blinked, the familiar weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders once again. They could only hide for so long. Sooner or later, the Dominion would find them, and when they did, they wouldn't hesitate to destroy everything in their path. "I know," she said quietly. "But I can't just keep running. I can't keep hiding from them. Not when I know what they're capable of." The human nodded, understanding. "And we can't keep fighting them the way we have been. If we keep doing things their way, they'll just wear us down. You've already seen how powerful they are." Zara's fists clenched involuntarily. She could still feel the power of Lyra's empathic blast. Still remember the moment she had unleashed her own emotions on her former mentor. It had felt like a victory, but it was a hollow one. Lyra had been a casualty, but the larger war was still ahead. "Then what do we do?" Zara asked. "How do we stop a power like that?" The human walked to the window, staring out at the stars. "I don't know. But we have to start somewhere. We can't just keep running." Zara's mind was spinning. There had to be something, some way to strike back, to break the Dominion's hold over the galaxy. But she had no army, no allies, just herself, and the human. "Maybe it's time we stopped running," she said, her voice firm. But there was something else in her eyes, something new, a flicker of hope, of defiance. "What do you mean?" he asked, turning toward her. Zara stood up, walking over to him. "We need to take the fight to them. Not with more power, not with brute force. We need to expose them for what they are. We need to show the galaxy that the Dominion is nothing more than a broken system built on control, fear, and manipulation. But it's weak. It's been weak for a long time." The human stared at her, his brow furrowed. "You're talking about a revolution." Zara's gaze hardened. "It's the only way. If we keep hiding, they'll never stop hunting us. But if we show the galaxy what the Dominion has been doing to people, if we expose their corruption, then we might have a chance. We don't need to defeat them all at once. We just need to start the chain reaction, spark the fire." The human's eyes softened, his respect for her growing with every word. "You're not just a weapon anymore, Zara." Zara turned away, her thoughts a whirlwind. She hadn't realized it until now, but the human was right. She had changed. The bond they had forged together wasn't just about survival. It was about hope, about something bigger than either of them. "No," she said quietly. "I'm not." Just then the ship's alarm rang out again. This time it was closer, much closer. Zara's heart skipped a beat. "They've found us," she said, her voice low but steady. "They won't stop until they have us both." The human looked at her, his eyes hard with resolve. "Then let's make sure they regret it." For the first time in what felt like forever, Zara felt a rush of something other than fear. Adrenaline, determination, something she hadn't felt in years. The time for running was over. Now it was time to fight. "Prepare for battle," Zara said, moving to the control console. "We don't have much time. We need to find a way to take them down." But as her fingers hovered over the buttons, something caught her eye. A message blinking on the screen. A transmission. "Who would be trying to contact us now?" she muttered, confusion rippling through her as she opened the message. The screen flickered and a familiar face appeared. "Zara," said the voice, soft but clear. It was Lyra, alive and not in the way she expected. Her eyes were wide, filled with something between anger and desperation. "You're still alive," Zara whispered, her voice barely audible. "We need to talk," Lyra said, her voice tight with emotion. "It's not what you think. They've been manipulating everything, not just you, not just me. Everyone. They've been using us for something bigger, something we can't even begin to understand. But it's not too late. You still have a chance to stop it all." Zara's heart pounded. This wasn't the Lyra she had known. This wasn't the woman who had trained her, who had followed the Dominion's every order without question. "What do you mean?" Zara asked, her voice shaking with a mix of disbelief and fear. "You were never meant to be a weapon, Zara. You were meant to be something much more. They've been playing a game with all of us, and now you're the key to ending it." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving nothing but static. Zara stood frozen, the weight of her words heavy on her shoulders. What game? What was she the key to? And who was the enemy now? The human placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice, low but unwavering. "Whatever this is, Zara, we're in it together. And we'll find out what's really going on. We'll make sure they pay for what they've done." Zara nodded, a new sense of purpose filling her chest. The Dominion had always been the enemy, but now the truth was more elusive, more dangerous. It wasn't just about taking down the Empire. It was about uncovering the secrets they had kept hidden. Secrets that, if revealed, could change everything. "We'll find the answers," she said quietly, "and we'll make them pay." As the ship's engines roared to life and the stars stretched out before them, Zara knew that this was only the beginning. The real battle had just begun, and this time, it wouldn't be just her fighting for survival. It would be everyone,